Changing a singer can make or break a band. Sometimes it's the beginning of the end, but every now and then it becomes the best thing that ever happened to them. Today we're looking at the rare moments when replacing the frontman didn't just work. It launched the band to an even higher level. These are 10 bands who got bigger after changing singers. When I go back and listen to early Anthrax with Neil Turbin, I always hear a band with the speed, energy, and attitude that defined early thrash. Yet the identity still feels incomplete. They had momentum, but something was missing. That changed the moment Joey Belladonna stepped in. His voice was cleaner, more melodic, and far more distinctive than most thrash singers. He gave Anthrax a sound that finally stood apart, suddenly spreading the disease and Among the Living appear, and the band leaps from local hopefuls to one of the big four of thrash metal. Before Belladonna, they were working clubs and fighting for recognition. After him joining the band, they were on MTV, touring internationally and headlining major festivals. Turbin lit an important spark, but Belladonna is the one who helped launch Anthrax into a completely different orbit. His arrival didn't just help the band grow, it defined who they would become.
It's no secret how strong my love is for you.
Whenever I think about Jefferson Airplane's transformation, I always picture the early San Francisco scene. Folk rock venues, small stages, and a band still shaping its personality. They were good, and even promising, but not yet historic. Then Sina Anderson leaves and Grace Slick steps in. From that moment on, everything feels different.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small.
She didn't simply join the group. She changed its entire direction. And she arrived with Somebody to Love and White Rabbit, two songs that would become pillars of the psychedelic era. Suddenly, Jefferson Airplane weren't just part of the movement. They were leading it. Footage from Monterey and Woodstock shows how completely Slick commanded the stage. She brought intensity, focus, and an unmistakable presence. Without Grace, they remain a strong folk rock band, but with her, they become one of the defining voices of the 1960s counterculture. They're remembered not just for hits, but for their cultural impact. The Moody Blues' early career has always interested me, because it begins in such an ordinary way. They were a British R&B and beat group with one early hit, Go Now. But by the mid-60s, their momentum had nearly vanished. Then Justin Hayward and John Lodge arrive, and the entire direction shifts almost instantly. Rather than chase another pop single, the group embraces orchestral arrangements, poetic writing, and a more ambitious musical vision. Within a year, they release Days of Future Past. It's an album that feels like a brand new genre. Nights in White Satin becomes a global classic, and suddenly the Moody Blues aren't a fading beat group, but pioneers of symphonic and progressive rock. Their reinvention was so complete that it's easy to forget what they sounded like before. They went from pub gigs to 70 million albums sold. It wasn't just a new singer, it was a rebirth.
Never reaching the end.
Every time I revisit Pantera's earliest albums, I'm reminded just how dramatically a band can transform. Those early glam metal years with the bright clothing and teased hair feel almost disconnected from the Pantera most fans know. Terry Glaze fronted that version, and while the musicians were clearly talented, the music never matched their real potential. Everything changed when Phil Anselmo joined. His intensity, vocal weight, and no-nonsense approach pulled the band toward the heavy, groove-driven sound they had been edging toward all along. Cowboys from Hell sounds like a rebirth, and by vulgar display of power, they had become one of the defining metal bands of the 1990s. The shift was so dramatic, it feels like two separate careers. The early experiment and the era that truly mattered. Anselmo didn't just replace a singer, he unlocked a version of Pantera that permanently reshaped modern metal.
It's control. You fall in the street and you make all your free every night. You turn on the power to burn out the
Iron Maiden's early Diano years have a charm I still appreciate. It's the raw, fast, street-level energy that helped define the new wave of British heavy metal. But as soon as the songwriting grew more ambitious, it was clear the band needed a voice capable of reaching higher. Bruce Dickinson provided exactly that. The first time I heard The Number of the Beast, the difference was immediate. Dickinson's range and power gave Maiden a dramatic, almost operatic presence that elevated everything around it. The album hit #1 in the UK and opened major markets around the world. Global tours, iconic stage shows, and a run of classic albums followed. It turned Maiden from a rising metal band into international heavy metal royalty. Diano helped build the foundation, but Dickinson propelled Iron Maiden into a league few bands ever reach. His arrival didn't just help Maiden evolve, it transformed their entire trajectory. Listening to Journey before Steve Perry always feels like hearing a talented band still searching for its true voice. They had strong musicianship and ambition, but their sound didn't yet connect on a broad emotional level. Everything shifted when Perry entered the picture. His tenor had both power and warmth. It made the songs more memorable and more human. Their first album together, called Infinity, signaled a major step forward, but Escape made them superstars. Don't Stop Believing, Open Arms, and Who's Crying Now became defining tracks of the era. Before Perry joined Journey, they had never landed a top 20 single. After his arrival, they sold more than 75 million albums and became fixtures of American arena rock. Perry didn't simply front the band, he completed it. His voice gave Journey the emotional and melodic identity they had been missing. He turned them into one of rock's most enduring acts.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Take a wake up, you got to tidy your room now. Then Mr. Lewis.
Genesis' evolution after Peter Gabriel left has always fascinated me. Gabriel's theatrical presence with his costumes, characters, and storytelling shaped the band's progressive identity. Many assumed Genesis would fade or fracture after he departed, but instead the most unlikely solution emerged. Phil Collins stepped out from behind the drum kit. The shift sounded surprisingly natural. Their first Collins-fronted album was A Trick of the Tail, and it proved the band could thrive beyond Gabriel's leadership. As Genesis moved gradually toward more accessible songwriting, their popularity grew enormously. Albums like Duke, Genesis, and Invisible Touch turned them into stadium headliners. Collins brought warmth, humor, and emotional clarity that connected with a wider audience. Under Gabriel, Genesis were revered cult favorites. Under Collins, they became one of the biggest pop rock bands of the 1980s. The transition remains one of the most unexpectedly successful transformations in modern music.
Don't look for no worries. Worries and troubles come around.
Fleetwood Mac's history is full of twists, but nothing compares to the shift that happened when Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined. The band had already been through several lineups and stylistic phases, including a strong blues rock period, but they were losing direction. Then Buckingham and Nicks arrived and suddenly everything aligned. Their 1975 self-titled album marked a significant leap forward, but rumors changed everything. With more than 40 million copies sold, it became one of the most iconic albums of all time. What I find most compelling is how the personal struggles within the band, such as breakups, tensions, and conflicting emotions, turned into brilliantly crafted songs that resonated across generations. Buckingham brought sharp production instincts, while Nicks added mystique and lyrical depth. Fleetwood Mac would have remained a respected blues band without them, but with them, they became a cultural phenomenon whose influence still stretches across decades.
There is no other day. Let's try it another way.
Pink Floyd's shift from Syd Barrett to David Gilmour is one of the most profound artistic evolutions I've ever seen in a rock band. Barrett was the catalyst for their early psychedelic sound. It was creative, unpredictable, and imaginative. But as his mental health declined, the band faced a painful uncertainty. When Gilmour joined the group didn't just stabilize, they discovered an entirely new voice. Gilmour's expressive guitar playing and calm vocal tone blended seamlessly with Roger Waters' growing conceptual ambitions.
How I wish you were here.
The result was a series of monumental albums. The Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals in the Wall, all of them not just successful releases, they became cultural landmarks. The commercial leap was extraordinary and the artistic depth unmatched. Barrett lit the spark, but the Gilmour-led era turned Pink Floyd into one of the defining musical forces of the 20th century.
Have become comfortably numb.
AC/DC's story after Bon Scott's death remains to me the strongest example of a band overcoming impossible odds. Scott had been the band's charismatic center, and when he died in 1980, it felt like the entire rock world froze. Many expected the band to stop entirely. They made a courageous choice to continue instead, bringing in Brian Johnson as their new frontman. What happened next is now rock history. The band recorded Back in Black. It was and is an album that serves both as a tribute and a declaration of unbreakable spirit. It went on to sell more than 50 million copies worldwide and stands as one of the best-selling albums ever released. Songs like Hell's Bells, Back in Black, and You Shook Me All Night Long still define classic rock radio. AC/DC didn't merely survive the loss. They grew even larger and became true rock legends. And that's the list. Do you agree that these bands became even bigger with their new vocalist? Which one surprised you most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoy these rock deep dives, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and stick around for more stories from music history.
How I wish you were here.